All right, so it's time for another project here on Project Nine Oaks. We've got my red mini bike here that I built for my boys. Kind of a prototype build. I didn't really know how to build one of these or have any idea of what I'm doing, but kind of figured out just from watching little videos on YouTube and just kind of trial and error on my own. Started out, bought the frame just on a whim, basically at a store nearby. It was the frame and the front tire. And so decided to just build the whole mini bike. I actually did have the motor. It's a 5 horsepower like rotor-tiller engine, and it was just kind of sitting around brand new. Really didn't have any use for it, so I thought I'd build a mini bike with it. And so went about trying to find different videos on YouTube of how to put the clutch on and what is the rear wheel and sprocket and how the brakes work, things like that. And then just kind of putting those ideas together into one build here. So right now I'm trying to fix the idler pulley. It was loose, even with it tightened up with the way it came with the bike. It's still too loose, and I'll kind of show you what I did. I guess wrong, but I'm fixing it now. But show you something that for you to consider when you're putting a mini bike like this together. So I'm going to show you some of this idler pulley, contraption I'm going to be putting together here, and then kind of show you zoomed in little portions of the bike that I was struggling with, and so you can have an idea of maybe it helps you out for your build. So. Anyway, we'll get to looking at these different parts of this bike and this fun little project that we did a few months ago. But before I get started, I'd like you to subscribe to the channel and also like and get the notification bell. So if you would help me out by doing that, and then we'll get started. Okay, so we'll get right in here to what I'm working on. So right now, this is the idler pulley, and basically it fits in this slot here, and it bolts all together, and then it has this tensioner that if I can get this on here, I'll show you. So it has this that you'd slip over the bolt first and a nut on it, and you just start pulling this side to side, and that's what tightens the belt just a little bit. So it's got a little bit of extra tightness if you pull it all the way. Well, I pulled mine all the way. As you can see, it's still got a lot of slack in it. So, there's a couple things I was thinking of doing, but I don't think it'll work. I mean, I could take a link out, but it's way, even if I loosen this all the way up, I won't be able to get one link out of there. It won't be long enough. So I just need to get a little bit more tension in it to tighten it up. And so my plan is to basically, I have this bracket here that I'm going to use to drill a hole through it. Actually, I think I'm going to put it this way. Drill a hole through it, drill a hole through the end, and then put this spring here that's going to kind of keep it spring tensioned up and keep that tight. And so that's the plan. But if I had to do this all over again, do a couple things different. I'm trying to remember now, but I think I put the motor on first, and I was kind of worried about how that would fit and getting that kind of set and where I needed to put that, but I don't think I did that. I wouldn't have done that the first thing if I had to do it over again. I would start with the rear wheel, get that one set, and then sight down the sprocket and the rear wheel to the engine to get a nice line to line up that chain, put the chain around it, and then push the engine, loosen the tension pulley and push the engine up as far as I could go. And that way you would mount the engine with the chain pretty tight, and then you use the tensioner pulley to tension up the chain. I think what I had done was just mounted the engine and mounted the rear wheel and put some spacers in there to get it to line up, and then put the chain around it, and then realized that even with the tensioner all the way, it just needed to go just a little bit more. So, well, here's the back tire and the sprocket, and you can see how, sighting it down the engine, nice straight line. Again, would be great if the engine was forward just a little bit, but this is the rear tire setup. It had a sprocket on the left side here where the chain goes around, obviously, and then on the right side it had a like a disc brake, and ended up, I believe what it was that it was just too wide and it wouldn't fit in between the frame here, so I ended up taking the brake off. I believe that's what it was. So basically, if I took the brake off, then the tire would fit in here. However, well, then I didn't have any brakes, so I was trying to figure out how am I going to stop this thing if I don't have any brakes. So I ended up doing a band brake on the clutch itself. So I'll show you that in a little bit. But anyway, the rear sprocket and wheel is just, I have like an axle bolt I think I got from Go Power Sports, and then just slid it through and put some spacers. I have like I can't remember if it's a 3/4 inch pipe or a 5/8 pipe in there, just to kind of cut to length to what I needed, and a washer on each end, and then a couple of washers on this end to get the spacing right so it wouldn't slide around, so it's nice and sturdy where it doesn't slide back and forth. It's just in there. So anyway, so that's kind of the back wheel. I would like to have done some sort of brake pads, maybe, you know, somehow on this side of the sprocket somehow, but welding something up. Anyway, I didn't want to get that much into it, so I did the band brake. So here's the band brake setup. What I ended up doing was getting a piece of steel and cutting it to a certain length here, and where it would attach to the engine with 2 bolts, and I ended up welding a bolt, or getting my neighbor to actually weld a bolt head to the steel, so the bolt sticks out this way, and that's what the band like slips around. And I got a spacer here, and then the band slips around it, and it kind of lines it up with the clutch here, and then just a nut on the end. So that gets the band around, but I need some way for the cable to come in and be stationary, and then when I pull on the brakes, it like tightens up the band. So I ended up welding on 2 nuts here. They're kind of like long, I think they're like 1/4 inch nuts, and then a bolted through the end, and a little like washer with the end on it here, so I can so it can grip the cable housing, and the cable will slide through it. So again, there it is, just like a strip of steel bolted into the engine in 2 places, just to give it a little bit of support. The bolt head welded to the steel, and then a spacer to allow that band to be right on the clutch there. So it works pretty good, and stops it real quick. It kind of maybe a little too much. You kind of have to feather the brake, but anyway, that's what I got for a brake system for this. And then this thing right here on the side is just something I added. This is I think it's just like a 3-inch wide piece of steel that I got from the hardware store, and I got this because when I put my son on it, and his leg to touch the peg it doesn't have much of an arch to it, so he just goes straight from the seat to the peg, and he was getting really close to that clutch. So I decided to put this kind of protection here, and so it's just bolted to the top and bottom, but it gets in front of the clutch and just gives a place for his leg to sit and not get close to the engine, and don't have to worry about it getting caught up in anything that's moving or really hot or anything. So I thought that worked out pretty good, and it makes him feel a little bit better that it's not something burning hot sitting next to his leg. Alright, so this is the other side of the mini bike, and I had to do some modifications to the throttle mechanism. So this was a rotor-tiller engine, Briggs & Stratton, and basically the way it works is that you set it to either choke or run here, and you have it on off, turtle or rabbit basically. So, and it would stay there, and while you're doing tilling your garden or whatever, you want it to kind of stay there and not mess with the throttle for a rototiller. So that's what worked for this machine. But really, I didn't. Obviously, you don't want that on a bike. You want to be able to control the throttle. So really, if you can see here, this end of the throttle has a little peg there, and that's what was attached to the throttle mechanism for the engine. So when that peg was on bunny, it was all the way this way, and that throttle would open way up. And then when you get all the way to off, it would ground out the electrical and, you know, turn off the sparks. So I still left that part on there so you can turn it off, and it's just, you know, this metal arm hitting the wire coming from the engine. So it's just not much to it. You can't really see it up in there, but what it ended up doing is the throttle part of the engine, you know, you can kind of see the mechanism there, and the throttle cable from the handle is just, I mean, it's just kind of wired onto there. I couldn't really think of an easy way to do it, but it's worked for several months now. So basically that throttle coming from the engine doesn't want to return on its own. However, the handle throttle has a spring in it, so it allows it to return. However, that really wasn't quite enough after I got it on there, so you can't see it, but I installed another spring just attached to some other part of the engine, just would pull it back to its starting position when you let go of the throttle. So, okay, so now that I've got the bracket drilled out for the bolt through the idler pulley, I'll drilled another small hole here for the spring, and then I kind of widen the slot here to attach the bolt through the frame. So we'll go ahead and get this bolted up and see what we can do here. Actually got to put it under the chain. There's a certain order of operations here, so put the lock nut on it. And we'll just tighten all this up and see what we got. Alright, now the fun part of stretching this. This is originally for the kickstand, but it was too small. So let's see if we can. There we go. Ooh, that might be a little too much. I think that's a little too tight. Alright, so I think I'm going to take this chain off, or take the spring off. Okay, well the chain, or the spring that I had was just too short, and it was really pulling too tight on that tensioner, and it was also kind of, since these tabs aren't really lined up, it was kind of pulling it in too much, and the chain was coming off of the pulley. So my kind of short-term solution was just crank down on this bolt as hard as I could. You know, that wasn't really much of a solution, but it's got a lock nut on there. We'll see how much that holds. Now that it's the next day, I thought I'd give you guys a better view of this bike out in the sun. Kind of, you know, I can walk all the way around it, so a little bit better than in the shop there. So anyway, trying to give you some shots up close if you're having some issues and trying to figure out how to build yours. Maybe some of this could help out. But anyway, so I got it all put together with the new setup for the idler pulley here, and I think I'm gonna hop on this and see how fast it'll go, get on the road up here. We've been using it for several months now and haven't really tested out how fast it goes, so I'm thinking it's somewhere around 20, but we'll see. So I'm gonna go hop on and get on the road. Alright, so it looks like we got up to 26 miles an hour on that mini bike. I thought that was pretty impressive, especially with my weight on there. It probably could go a lot quicker with my boys on there, so not really wanting them to go that fast, but we'll see what comes out when they get a little older, see what speed they can get up to. So appreciate you watching this video. I got another project here that I bought yesterday. This is a little go-kart frame, and I'm going to be putting an engine on it and see what we can do with that. I think the boys are a little bit more wanting to do a car versus a bike. They're still kind of leery of getting on that bike and getting in the grass and riding around. So anyway, appreciate you watching this video. If you would do me a favor and like and subscribe. Got some more projects coming up. As you can see, kind of got a barn full of things going on.